Daytona. He has won at Talladega. Let's see what the Kroger Cottonelle Chevy can do.
Always a very aggressive plate racer. Now that thing you took off, that was your snapshot of what a launch is supposed to look like, Tony.
Exactly, and what we're going to see, you're going to see it all the way through the session. When these guys pull out on the racetrack, they're going to go all the way to that outside wall, at least for the first lap and probably for the second lap as well, to try to make the lap as long as they can to get the motor wound up.
So he is up to speed, green flag for one lap.
Yeah, make that thing as big as possible, get as much momentum as you possibly can build up coming to that green flag, then get it right down on the yellow line, hug that thing, try to hold the wheel as straight as possible. In that driver's seat, Tony, there's just not a whole lot you can do, but holding that wheel straight, staying on the bottom, making this racetrack as small as possible, certainly some things that are tricks of the trade.
And that's something we used to actually do for qualifying here. We used to put an extra pad on the door padding inside the driver's door so we could prop our elbows up against it just to hold our hands, because this is back before they repaved Daytona. It was so wavy and bumpy that every time you hit a bump, your hands move. Well, every time that steering wheel moves, it's working on the power steering, which is also robbing horsepower.
JTG Doherty, single car team for the last 2 seasons. And Stenhouse, 50.583. Will be his lap of record. And the 13 will roll out after the 6 of Brad Keselowski. Now an owner in what is Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing, his second year as a team owner. Matt McCall's the crew chief. Both of Brad's cars won their dual races here last year. 7 wins on this style track, but not yet the Daytona 500. He's the 2012 Cup champion in the next Lizette Ford.
With the speed and the 6-ball showing up. Didn't have a good clash. Brad is certainly one of the best drafters on the racetrack. I look for big things out of this number 6 Ford Mustang. I think you're going to see him up front being aggressive, making some good pushes, and being a factor in this Daytona 500.
So the 13 is on track, faster than he was down in turn 1, but Keselowski quicker, 50.091.
A lot quicker.
And so now, Chandler Smith for Kaulig Racing, 5-time winner in the Truck Series and full-time with Kaulig in the Xfinity Series this season. Let's see what the quick tie Chevy can do.
I think it just cut out again on him. Man, that's so unfortunate. Heartbreaker for those guys. Prepare all winter long for this opportunity. Gremlins.
Sounds like, as Schrader liked to say, one of those big important parts in the engine is about to break.
Well, it certainly looks like they're going to try to compete this lap, but they will definitely be racing tomorrow night for their position in the Daytona 500.
There's Ross Chastain, last year's series runner-up.
Heartbreaker for those guys. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears. A lot of hours goes into these race cars in preparation for this one moment. A lot of pressure on those guys as well.
Now, of the 6 cars trying to time their way in, we've learned that one of them, Connor Daly, who is scheduled to roll out 7th in the BitNile.com Chevrolet, will not make a qualifying attempt. Apparently they had an electrical problem and sparks somehow abraded, I guess, an oil line. Something happened there, and they will not be able to run.
But their day's not, the Daytona 500 is not over.
No.
There's still tomorrow night's dual races that's plenty, capable of winning or racing your way into that, Tony. I mean, these guys, they really truly split them up. So by the time we take care of business with 2 timed-in guys tonight, you just really have to focus on beating that one guy, whoever that is, in your duel.
Ryan Preece for Stewart-Haas Racing, 32-year-old modified champ from Berlin, Connecticut.
First car I've seen with some skew in that rear end. Got that rear end a little bit sideways, going after that speed in the 41 car.
Led a bunch of laps at the Clash a couple weeks ago.
And I like what I'm seeing on the top half of this screen so far.
You know, again, when we're talking about qualifying, the speed in these cars, you know, is the old saying is the juice worth the squeeze. And what that means is they can trim these cars out a little bit more and find some speed. You see how rigid the front end is. You heard me talk about the skew in the rear end. You truly do run these things on the bump stops, almost a rigid suspension completely to find the great speed. But it comes at the expense of some handling for tomorrow night's duels and even in the 500.
Yeah, tomorrow night it has to be maneuverable, and it has to be stable and have stability. For the qualifying lap, you could drive this thing one-handed around there if you weren't worried about the lap time. It's easy to drive, but you got to have it maneuverable for traffic tomorrow.
Top of the board for Ryan Preece, 50.042. And you see that Chandler Smith had completed his lap. We neglected to give the time, 51.42, second or so off. Justin Haley had the pole for the Clash a couple weeks ago. And since then, he's won 3 times at Volusia Speedway, just up the road here, about 15 miles. He won a cup race here at Daytona in 2019 and has 2 Xfinity Series wins here as well. This is the Circle Chevrolet. Jamie.
Well, Kevin Harvick announced that this will be his final season, so final Daytona 500 qualifying. Do you think about those things already?
I've already thought about all those things. Now you just, when you walk to pit road, you kind of get back into driver mode, and you know, I think we put so much time and effort in trying to plan everything appropriately and lay everything out and lay it all out for everybody else to try to have a good plan going into the thing so that we can concentrate on the competition side of things. So hopefully our Busch Light Ford Mustang runs fast and we can have a good week.
All right, he won the Daytona 500 in 07, but he's never won a pole, Mike.
We'll see if tonight's the night. One of his teammates, Ryan Preece, fastest so far at 50.04. Justin Haley third, 50.35, and this is second-year Cup driver Harrison Burton, racing for the Wood brothers, who've won here 5 times in the 500. He won an IMSA race here in January, Burton did, with co-driver Zane Smith.
Yeah, it's certainly cool to see those kids come down and get a victory under their belt at the Daytona Speed Weeks. That's big, man. Shot in the arm, confidence booster for all those guys.
I just think it's fun to see these guys not just focused on just driving in NASCAR, to have the opportunity, and we've seen it a lot with Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Ricky Stenhouse, all these guys that take the opportunity when they can just to drive race cars. I know it made it a lot more fun for me. I love what I do in NASCAR, but at the same time, I don't like what I'm seeing up there. But I always like being able to drive other
that
cars.
a little longer than you wanted. 49.99 broke into the 49-second bracket. I hear you, Harrison Burton.
Harrison Burton, the Motorcraft X Imaging Ford, now fastest. Josh?
I'm down here with the defending Cup Series champion, Joey Logano, also the 2015 Daytona 500 winner. You've had so much success here. How do you keep that going?
I hope so, right? I mean, it all starts here in qualifying and getting a good spot for the duel, and then trying to work your way through it. There's some points for the duel, so we want to get those as well. And see what we got so far. The Fords are looking pretty good. I know we're early in qualifying, but the Fords are looking good so far. So hopefully the big bright yellow shell Mustang can make it happen too.
Thanks and good luck, Joey. Guys.
New ride for Ty Dillon. He's with Spire Motorsports, going to run the whole season in this number 77. 3 top 10s at Daytona, more than he's had at any other NASCAR Speedway. This is the Ferris Chevrolet.
Good looking racer. Always thought all tough race cars had black and red on them.
Buddy, remember your clean cut and your numbers for me?
Not what he was looking for there. 51.04 for Ty Dillon.
Here he is, buckling back into a NASCAR Cup car. Pretty hard to believe, Tony, seeing that guy. 20 years he's been coming here. Long time Jimmy's been doing that.
The thing we don't think about is that he's one of the old guys now. That's the part that's hard to stomach.
A.J. Allmendinger took Colleague Racing to victory in the Cup Series on the Indy Road Course last August. The 41-year-old from Los Gatos, California, is going to run the full season in this number 16. Here it's the Nutrien Ag Solutions Chevrolet.
There you see just how rigid these teams are pushing these cars. Looks like the front end's all but solid, bouncing the splitter there. Probably one of those rears, probably the right rear, being down on a bump stop as well. Getting all they can do to get the speed in this thing. You want that air to stay as even as you can.
Don't count out the dinger. He's got 2 third-place finishes in the Daytona 500. And he is 4th fastest, 50.33.
There you see that thing, just how rigid it is. Just bounce, bounce, bounce. That's a handful inside that car.
Well, and it's a trade-off too. The thing that you watch for is you want to control that ride height because you want to control the air that's going underneath it. But when it's pulsating up and down like that, you're not really controlling it anymore. The one variable in that equation, tires. You can't put a shock on those tires, so that doesn't control the rate that it bounces.
Here is Michael McDowell, former Daytona 500 winner. We'll check with Jamie.
Connor Daly, one of those guys trying to qualify his way into his first Daytona 500. You started in the Indy 500 9 times, but right now you're in street clothes. What happened with your car?
I'm a big NASCAR fan, so I'm out here just trying to watch and gain some experience. But honestly, we had a very like 1 in a million type thing. The oil heater, which is important for qualifying, basically shorted out and made the oil line explode. So we apparently didn't have another one of those, and a lot of other teams, their spares are on their backup cars. So it was tough. Everyone tried to push really hard, like the ECR engine department. I appreciate those guys working on it. But yeah, I just talked to one of my mechanics who worked on my Xfinity car a couple years ago, and he was like, yeah, I've never heard of that happening ever. So I was like, great, well, 1 in a million type stuff. We'll see what happens tomorrow.
All right, he's got to try to race his way in tomorrow night, Mike.
That's right. All right, Michael McDowell, 4th fastest with a 50.20 in the Love's Travel Stops Ford. McDowell went to victory lane here 2 years ago. And it brings up 31-year-old Corey LaJoie for Spire Motorsports, teammate to Ty Dillon. All 5 of his Cup Series top 10s have come on these big super speedways, Daytona and Talladega. This is the Celsius Chevrolet for Corey LaJoie.
Yeah, Corey always finds a way to get to the end of that thing, survive. You know, it's such a big part of winning on a draft type of racetrack like Daytona, Talladega. You have to be able to survive the wrecks, the carnage, to get to the end, and Corey does a good job of that. I'm still having a tough time, Tony. Our stat guys are trying to implement this Atlanta racetrack into, you know, what we know of drafting style restrictor plate racing, and I'm having a tough time with it. I really am, but I agree with them. I agree.
All right, 9th fastest for Corey LaJoie. Bubba Wallace gets ready to climb aboard for his qualifying run as Jeff Gordon talks it over with a couple of champs. And Jimmy Johnson is back.